Hello and good evening to you. Welcome to News at 10 and it's live my news up here at Adesawe in Kanda. Also live across the world on 3news.com. Also live on channel 271 on your DSTV. My name is Alfred Okanse. Welcome to News at 10. Let's settle for some of the news that made headlines throughout the day. Now, the Executive Secretary of the National Labour Commission, Ofosu Asamoah, has warned he will advise government to suspend salaries of worker groups like NAGRAT for flouting the Labour Act 651. The Executive Secretary described as bad faith the earlier intention by the National Association of Graduate Teachers, NAGRAT, to embark on a nationwide strike. Now, the judiciary is considering making alternative dispute resolution mandatory for civil disputes before trial. If this becomes operational, litigants can no longer seek court trial of civil cases until all avenues of resolving the matter have failed. This was revealed by the Chief Justice, Her Ladyship Justice Sophia Akufo, at the launch of Game & Co. Alternative Dispute Resolution Center in Accra. And in business tonight, a banking consultant, Dr. Richmond Etiahene, has cautioned the Bank of Ghana not to force banks into mergers simply because they cannot raise a new minimum capital requirement of 400 million cedis by December 31. He noted there are different risk complexities, systems and processes of each bank that could present stumbling blocks after the merger is effected. Our government has secured $2 million from the Africa Development Bank to train startups in the business environment. Part of the amount will be allocated to the private and the informal sectors to expand their businesses. Minister of Employment and Labour Relations, Ignatius Bafwewa, is confident this would help government create jobs. And on the international front, the United Nations is holding a donor conference in Geneva on April 13, 2018. It hopes to raise £1.7 billion to ease what it calls a major humanitarian crisis in the Democratic Republic of Congo. But in an unprecedented move, the Congolese government has refused to attend the event, alleging that the United Nations has exaggerated the scale of the problem. Those were some of the headlines that made the news throughout the day. Let's settle for our first story tonight on News at 10. The Council of State has given its backing to the Bank of Ghana directive on the 400 million cedi capital requirement for banks. In a statement signed by the Acting Secretary to the Council, Peace A.P. Okante, the Council said it has deliberated and carefully examined available options and is therefore advising indigenous banks that cannot meet the capital requirement to enter into mergers in order to compete favorably and ensure sanity in the banking sector. It has also urged the Bank of Ghana to intensify its due diligence monitoring and enforcement process to safeguard the interest of depositors. The Council believes that ultimately depositors' interests must be protected at all times. But reacting to this position by the Council of State, banking consultant Dr. Richmond Echiahene has cautioned the Bank of Ghana not to force banks into measures simply because they cannot raise a new minimum capital requirement of 400 million cedis by the deadline date of December 31, 2018. He noted there are different risk complexities, systems and processes of each bank that can present stumbling blocks after the measure is effected.
The Council of State has advised indigenous banks who cannot meet new minimum capital requirement by the central bank to consider merging with other banks. However, a banking consultant, Dr. Richmond Echiahene, is cautioning if care is not taken, a measure could be disastrous. He indicated if a measure goes well, the new company should appreciate in value as investors anticipate synergies to be actualized, creating cost savings and possibly increased revenue for the new entity.
If you merge and your asset base go up, your profitability goes up by say 20%, then we can say that 2 plus 2 is 5. That is what they call synergistic effect. And before you talk about mergers or acquisition or takeovers, one would have to understand everybody's concept, business model. Some of the business models cannot fit into other business models.
Dr. Richmond Echiahene noted the different risk complexities must be considered in terms of measures as well as studying the behavioral patterns of each potential partner.
Let's assume I am a mortgage bank and you tell me to go and take up an SME. The risk complexities are different. So when we want to talk about measures, we should take our time and see how best we can merge the do's and the don'ts, and before we talk about measures. Measures cannot be pushed on. Nigerians tried the measures in 2004. In the end, they had some of the banks failed woefully.
Now, still on this, a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, Dr. Lord Mensah, has urged Ghanaian banks to diversify their credit and move away from government as their major debtor. This, he says, will reduce the dependence on central government.
The Bank of Ghana in September 2017 raised the minimum capital requirement to 400 million cedis. Banks in Ghana have until December this year to raise their capital adequacy ratio or risk sanctions, based on concerns raised that government has been the major borrower of non-performing loans from district local banks as government borrows to finance most of its development projects. A senior lecturer at the University of Ghana, Dr. Lord Mensah, said banks ought to diversify their clientele so they do not concentrate most of their funds on one entity, and they must bear full responsibility for all financial decisions made.
As a bank, you should be able to set your priorities right. I have come to understand that maybe the banks were too sleepy, trying to avoid the normal retailing of credit and find a way to concentrate their credit or their lending to the government. Then it might not necessarily be banking. In banking, you need to diversify your credit.
Answering questions on the prudence of recapitalization, he said the Bank of Ghana as the regulator should be allowed the independence to work. He said if they do not meet the capital adequacy ratio independently, they need to merge or be proactive and use the market to raise credit and meet the capital requirements.
If you look at what is happening on the ground, merger might not necessarily mean that people will lose their jobs. The merger can take place and still protect, the jobs. When there's a merger, it might not necessarily mean that a takeover where new management comes in. But this is a merger where interest must be kept in there. So in the end, I presume that the job losses within the banking sector might not necessarily be affected.
Based on petitions from the management of various local banks, President Akufo-Addo has set up a 10-member committee to deliberate on a reprieve as far as the minimum capital requirement is concerned. The 10-member committee will comprise of 3 members from the Bank of Ghana, 3 members from the Ministry of Finance, 3 members from the local banks, and a chairperson to be nominated by the President.
Well, let's take a steam on this particular issue because the Bank of Ghana has put in motion a number of steps aimed at sanitizing the banking sector. The upward adjustment of the minimum capital requirement is one such step they intend to ensure sanitizing the sector. But what does this mean to the ordinary Ghanaian on the streets? Solace Roscoe has been finding out.
Ghana has set the minimum capital requirement at 400 million Ghana cedis. Now, this is to take effect by the end of December 2018. Now, defaulting banks who are not able to meet this requirement would or might be required to fold up. But we've hit the streets to find out exactly how much the average Ghanaian knows and understands about recapitalization.
I've not heard anything about it though. My mind is not in on those things yet.
You must do the business well, so the business must be raised. So Bank of Ghana always know his right. So always must be teaching those people when they didn't coach them well, they are always be failed.
Actually, I'm not using. I don't have any account from the Bank of Ghana, so I don't know anything about the Bank of Ghana.
The minimum capital requirement means that the amount that you need to be able to run a bank here in Ghana. So it has to be something that is reasonable so that you don't easily go into liquidization where you have to cut off the banking sector. And I mean, people lose a lot of cash. People are insecure. They're not able to trust the bank enough to save their monies there.
While trying to get people to talk about something that they obviously didn't really understand was quite difficult as pulling teeth. And at least maybe gives you an idea of how much people actually understand when it comes to the minimal capital requirement or recapitalization in general. It was very, very difficult to have people admit on camera that they did not understand, especially since it's been a trending issue for the last few months, considering what has transpired in the banking sector. Solace Roscoe, TV3, Accra.
Well, you're still live here on News at 10. I have more news up here at Desawe in Kanda. We'll be back shortly after this quick break. Do stay. You're welcome back to News at 10 here on TV3. Now, if he is unable to raise $25,000 within the next few weeks, it's sure death for 36-year-old native of Cape Coast, Thomas Khan. Thomas is suffering from an acute kidney failure and urgently needs a transplant to survive. But his survival depends on the philanthropy of many of you who are watching us tonight.
Thomas, like many, discovered he had kidney failure after a wrong diagnosis.
The whole thing started like malaria sort of. So I fell sick and I was admitted at the hospital, and I was wondering what kind of malaria that they keep treating and it wasn't going.
He has lived with kidney failure for the last 5 years and presently survives on the expensive procedure of dialysis 3 times a week. However, doctors say he urgently requires a kidney transplant. Maintaining a dry weight of 65 kg is key to improving his health. He has to shed some 5 kg of fluid, but Khan's kidneys won't allow him.
We raised something, but it wasn't able to undertake the transplant. So those monies were used by Thomas Khan on the dialysis. And remember, the dialysis, you have to come, I think, thrice every week.
Thomas now requires help to enable him undergo a kidney transplant in India. The 2004 year group of the Mfansipim School have been able to raise $10,000 for Khan's transplant. They have appealed to other year groups to help raise the $25,000 needed.
It's always a wonderful feeling to be in Mfansipim. Whether you leave or not, you're still part of the family. When one of us is hurt, we are all hurt. So as our brother Thomas Khan is in this crisis, that is a challenge with his kidneys, both kidneys, and we are seeking to give him a transplant. We're just calling on the whole body, that's the Mobile National Fraternity, to come together to assist has raised these funds for Thomas to get his transplant.
Media General is encouraging the public to assist raise $25,000 for a kidney transplant to help Khan live life and achieve his dreams and aspirations. Please pay your donations into the TV3 Social Support Fund account number 6010603927 at any Zenith Bank branch. You can also donate on mobile money number 0245 221555 or at the TV3 premises at Kanda in Accra.
Now, the last time we made this appeal, lots of you, in fact, a number of you have responded to it, but we're still appealing to you other watching us. We believe that you also share in this particular appeal that we're making to save the life of our very own Thomas Khan. So if you're watching, and please, as you see on the bottom of your screens, there is a mobile money number displayed there. That's 0245 221 555. Kindly send any amount that you can within your own strength to help us all as we mobilize some funds to help save our very own brother and friend, a colleague, Thomas Khan. And also you can come to the premises of TV3 that's in Kanda just to make your donation as well, or to walk into any Zenith Bank branch and ask for the TV3 Support Fund account and kindly make your donations as well into that account. We'll be indeed very, very grateful that you heeded to this appeal that we're making to you, and we'll say thank you. But the Minister of Works and Housing, Samuel Atacha, is saying that a lot of key national projects are not backed by comprehensive feasibility studies. Hence, projects are usually not well executed and ultimately are unable to solve the country's problems. The minister was speaking at the launch of the 2017 Construction Africa Trends Report in Accra.
Feasibility studies should be the basis upon which an idea becomes a project capable of attracting funding. But according to the minister, most international financiers are not interested in that phase, and that explains the number of white elephant projects dotted around the country.
We do not have any bankable project. We can't say that we have a file that if you took it to Exim Bank, wherever, we'll be able to secure the funds to go and do it. So the real challenge is that in trying to solve the infrastructure problems, we should have all the financial houses coming to the aid of the African countries. The financial houses are not interested in giving the government good money to do feasibility analysis, and the government has no money to do it. And therefore, you have a situation where people just come and wave their hand. They believe that, oh, you can do this project for $500 million, but indeed and in fact, that's not what the problem is. It can be solved.
The minister acknowledged that one solution lies with politicians prioritizing projects and being apolitical with issues of national development. The Africa Construction Trend Report tracked about 300 projects in Africa with a value of $50 million or above, which had begun construction by June 2017. The report concluded that transport, real estate and energy sectors had the most number of projects, with health, education and water projects underrepresented. South Africa had the highest number of projects, but Nigeria had the most high-value projects. It also realized that governments owned and funded the biggest chunk of the projects, and China was the second largest financier and the largest builder of the projects. The report also identifies slow decision-making process and the tendency to go for cheaper tender costs as increasing the cost of projects.
So making quick and effective decisions is probably one of the most important, and in a way simplest things that can be done in developing projects. Getting your homework right, I think, is also quite important. Understanding what is the project supposed to achieve, how's the project being put together, is also quite important.
Of the 20 top projects on the continent, 13 will not meet the completion schedule.
An Accra Circuit Court court judge Aboagye Tando has cautioned prosecution in the case involving individuals in the Kwabenya cell break. The judge expressed dissatisfaction over the prosecution's failure to appear in court with a witness for the fourth time in the trial of the accused persons. Here's a report by Godfrey Tanam.
Prosecution in the last sitting told the court witnesses will appear to testify against the individuals who have been charged for aiding the escape of some 7 escapees from the Kwabenya cells in January this year. Lawyers for the suspects expressed unhappiness with the conduct of prosecution, stating the rights of the individuals are at stake. The judge Aboagye Tando cautioned prosecution to make sure witnesses appear in court in the next sitting. 4 of the cell breakers who were rearrested have already been sentenced on their own plea. The other 9 suspects, including a woman, have pleaded not guilty to the charge against them and were subsequently remanded to police custody. The 9 will reappear in court on April 16.
The General Superintendent of the Assemblies of God, Ghana, Reverend Dr. Frimpong Mansell, has commended President Akufo-Addo for the matured way he handled the criticism of the Ghana-U.S. military-based cooperation agreement and added he fully understood the explanation given by the President. Reverend Dr. Mansell was speaking when the leadership of the General Council of the Assemblies of God, Ghana, called on the President at the Jubilee House.
The General Council of the Assemblies of God Church was at the presidency to congratulate President Akufo-Addo for winning the 2016 elections and for his good works in the first year of his tenure. The General Council also pledged the Assembly's commitment to supporting government in its quest to improve the living conditions of the people. Reverend Mansell lauded President Akufo-Addo for the maturity exhibited in explaining government position on the Ghana-U.S. military agreement.
I want to commend the President, the way you presented yourself, the maturity and the clarity, the way you explain yourself to Ghanaians, I think is well noted. And for some of us, and for many of us, we are satisfied with the explanation.
President Akufo-Addo said leadership of the church must always stand for the truth and be bold to speak to promote the development of the country.
At all times, you have to be the beacon for the society about what is required to be a full human being, the humility, the sincerity, integrity, the example that you set as Christian leaders has to be the example that the rest of us who are less privileged follow. So to have that example compromised is something that is disturbing.
The President added he is committed to serving the people of Ghana objectively and wants the church to play a watchdog role.
Where I am, I'm called upon sometimes to say things that may not be very pleasant, which I think I have to do in the wider interests of all of us. And that is why these remarks are coming to my lips, because the society at the moment seems to have some serious issues with some priests, and that should not be the case. People should follow your example, and I think that if they do so, we would all be in a better place.
Yeah.
A break in transmission for news during the VGMA nominee release party was criticized by many of you viewers as you hoped to follow every minute of the event as the nominees jump. Now there's some good news, and we have heeded to your feedback and also the information we got. Transmission of the 19th VGMA will be smooth and uninterrupted. Head of Media Journal, that's Digital, Francis Doku, gave the assurance.
We realized and recognized the VGMA as the biggest content, entertainment-wise, and so we decided to associate with it. And I think that over the period that we've been talking about it, you know, promoting the VGMA, we realized that it's gone very well for our audience on TV, on our digital platform, and on radio. So yes, we think that up to now, we have done what we have to do, and Charter House also supported us to make sure that the partnership works.
Ahead of this conversation, we put out a couple of tweets and all of that. Their concern was that, well, at some point during the nominees' jam and all of that, there was a break-in transmission for some 30 minutes news. That's been a concern of the people. Tomorrow you're going to show it. Are we going to break?
No, we're not breaking for news tomorrow. I mean, this is it. This is the big one. This is the climax of everything that we've done over the last 2 months or so. And so we realized that our audience would want to follow every minute of the VGMA from the red carpet, which starts at 7. And let me say again, it starts at 7. And we've told Charterhouse that we want that to happen. That usually we announce the time and then it doesn't start because many people wouldn't have been in the auditorium. But we're asking that whatever it is, no matter who comes, we want to start at 7 so that we can make the time to the end. And so we're having the news tomorrow from 6 to 7. So that we can start a red carpet from 7 o'clock until the show ends. And we've been giving assurance that it will run smoothly, you know, and it won't drag.
Well, that's some great news. So we do value your feedback and your constructive criticisms and also the responses that we get from you, our cherished viewers out there. So there's a good reason to stay and watch TV3. That's if you do not have a ticket to go to the VGMAs. And the hashtag is VGMA on TV3 on Twitter. VGMA on TV3. That's the hashtag we're using. Let's get tweeting. On behalf of the rest of the team on News at 10, we're grateful. My name is Alfred Okansi. Do have a good night.